All right, welcome back. I know it's been a minute since I've posted a video, but I got a great topic today. Today's topic is all about succeeding at syllabus design or syllabus building. I'm going to give you 10 tips to make your class syllabus sensational. So let's get started. So what exactly is a syllabus? Well, first off, it is a contract. It is a guide to your course. It's not an entire book. It's a guide to your course, a glimpse. It's a tool that students and parents can refer back to, and you can always refer your students back to. And it also, a syllabus is going to show your parents that you know what you're doing, that you're organized, and you have reasons for doing everything that you're doing. And also, I would say it's the starting point for cultivating the culture and climate that you desire for your classroom. So why do we have a syllabus in the first place? Well, it's going to lead to fewer problems with student challenges when it comes to grading, policies, procedures, your expectations. And once again, it's an excellent way to cultivate the culture and climate that you desire for your classroom. So the next question would be, what culture or climate do I desire to have for my classroom? And whew, that's a whole nother video entirety. So let's talk about these 10 design tips that I have for you. I think with these 10 design tips, if you incorporate them into your syllabus, you will have a great, well-rounded syllabus. So let's get started. Design tip number 10, always start with the basics. You know, a syllabus is going to have all the basics. So what are the basic pieces of information your students and parents have to know? Well, they need to know the course title, your name, class location, and time, a brief course description or brief course outline. They don't need to know the entire thing of what you're going to do, but just give them an overview of exactly what the student is going to be learning in class. For some parents, this will be the only time they may have a communication with you, is what they see on that syllabus. So it's important that they know what's going on. And then as you can see here, I have different examples of some basic syllabus beginnings. You can go in depth, or you can go real broad. It's your choice. So that's design tip number 10. Design tip number 9, contact, contact, contact. We cannot stress enough, socially, emotionally wise, how good communication with your parents sets the tone for your entire year. So how do you want your students and parents to reach you? You can do email, they can call, leave a voicemail, reach you during office hours, or you can do app-based like Remind, Canvas, and Google Classroom. However, here is a tip. Develop your contact policy and procedures. Don't just put your information out there and then don't give your parents and students a policy, procedure, and expectation of how you want contact to be made. So you need to set office hours. You need to make sure in your syllabus you have those do not disturb times. Your time is valuable as well, so set those times during the day where you are offline, where you will not receive contact. But most importantly, always set a response back time, be it an email, call, or Canvas, Remind, or Google Classroom. For me, if I get a call or an email, I tell them give me at least 24 hours to contact back. If it's a text or Remind, I say give me at least 6 hours, and I set that. And if someone exceeds out of that, then I simply just redirect them and reinforce that policy and procedure. And then remember 2 things. Keep it effective and keep it consistent. Whatever point of contact you choose, make sure it's something that you can maintain and keep consistent the entire school year. Make something that you can reinforce. All right, design tip number 8. What's the school rules? What school or district-wide policies do you want to communicate to students and parents? So the first thing you want to do is review your district's and school student and faculty handbook for policies concerning tardies, absences, electronic devices, food and drink, makeup work, dress code, and the consequence or discipline matrix. And if any of those you're going to follow those, you can place those in your syllabus. Here is a VIP though. Your policies in your classroom should never outrank your school's policies. What am I saying there? Well, basically what I'm saying is you can't have a tardy policy or tardy matrix that is lenient or stricter than your school's policy. So make sure they align. That way you are covered, and if something was to arise, your school and your district can have your back. All right, design tip number 7, list your digital footprint. And what I mean by here is, how will your students access the learning? How will they demonstrate their learning? What digital tools are you going to use? What LMS will you primarily use? Are you going to use Canvas, Google Classroom, combination of both, other apps, other websites, and then list that on the syllabus. That way they know. You could use Canvas, but you could also use Quizlet, Quizzes, Kahoot, Nearpod, Peer Deck. The list goes on and on. And since most schools, because of the pandemic, are a one-to-one campus, your class can be accessed anywhere, and your students need to know how. You also need to set the policies and procedures for accessing these various websites. So design tip 7, list your digital footprint. Design tip 6, never come empty-handed. And this is, I'm talking about materials. What essential materials do you need your students to bring every day? Every day. So you want to think about your class from bell to bell. What materials will they need to bring to learn and meet that day's goal or objective? And then also think about what materials can you provide from bell to bell to help them meet the goals and objectives that you set for them. So in this, you want to keep your materials list short. I've seen materials lists with 8 or 9. I've seen it with 2. You want to keep it short. Look at those those basic materials, and I have a lot of examples that I'll put the link in the description for you to look at. But you want to keep it short, 7 or less. Consider a wish list of classroom items, just universal classroom items that you know we're going to need: Clorox wipes, tissues, hand sanitizer, things like that. But it really comes down to, what do you think they essentially will need that they have to have that's not going to impede instruction? So their notebook, their pens, pencils, and highlighters. I would even say, if you have access to a plethora of pens and highlighters, maybe you don't need that. But definitely those kind of basic materials. But things like glue sticks or tape dispensers, you more than likely can access those and have those on hand. So they may not need those. So just think of those materials they have to have individually that won't impede instruction if it comes down to it. Like, for example, if you have an activity and you don't have enough scissors, for example, maybe everybody needs to have their own pair of scissors. All right, halfway through. All right, design tip 5, got to have some expectations. So what reasonable actions do you wish to see from your students day to day in your classroom? Those are expectations. Now, there's 2 primary expectation categories: academic expectations, which we'll get into momentarily, and then behavior expectations. You want to list both. You also, on your syllabus, need to decide how broad or specific you want to be in your syllabus. As you can see here, this teacher listed the academic expectations first, and it was and then she had a little bit of behavior: successfully pass English 2 with a 70%, achieve a level 3, be in seat when tardy bell rings, use restroom breaks, maintain a clean and orderly work area, complete quality work to turn in and to show your best work. Bam. Those were the expectations. And then right beside it, she has guidelines. Guidelines and expectations typically go hand in hand. And then, of course, with your expectations, you have the consequences. This is very important to list this, because when you start developing your classroom management plan and your classroom management style, you're going to be teaching these expectations and teaching these guidelines and reinforcing these. So you want to use your expectations to set the culture and climate of your classroom. Also, don't set unrealistic expectations you can't monitor or maintain. If you are going to have as soon as you come in, put your cell phones in a cubby, that's a great expectation. That's a great guideline. But is it something you can realistically maintain? You have to ask yourself, will you be able to do that? So got to have some expectations. So this design tip is something very important. You should spend a lot of time thinking about. And lastly, I wouldn't keep it no more than 5. This teacher had 6. I would recommend this teacher to trim down to 5. You could maybe even see if you have at least 3. So think about that. All right, design tip number 4. Keep your sanity with procedures and policies. How do you want your classroom to manage and run, even when you're not there? And that's policies and procedures. Think about your class utopia for a minute. The perfect classroom. What is going on in that perfect classroom? Just think about that for a moment. So all of a sudden, you should have different ideas that are popping up. Now, what policies and procedures would you need in place to keep your Classtopia running smoothly and efficiently? Those are your policies and procedures. They are the step-by-step procedures that you want your students to do completing certain tasks in your classroom. You could have one policy or procedure is as soon as they come in, have a seat, look at the do now or the bell ringer on the board and begin working on it before the tardy bell rings. That's a policy and that is a procedure. And the only way to do that is it's going to take time and practice. So some other examples are your food and drink policy, cell phone policy, tardy policy, bathroom policy, absence and makeup work policy, assignment submission. These are all policies that you have to spell out in your syllabus. And then when you develop your 10-day plan and your classroom management plan, you practice those policies with what I like to call a wash, rinse, and repeat cycle, where you reiterate these policies every single day until they have them. And when they deviate from them and it's time to reinforce them, that's when you always refer back to the syllabus and you reteach it. Also, make sure your policies and procedures align with the district and school policies. As you can see here, this teacher had a bathroom policy, technology and music policy, makeup work policy, and then a tardy policy. All those different policies. That way, instruction can keep going. And it's going to be frustrating, but the key is don't let up. You have to constantly wash, rinse, and repeat and reinforce and teach these policies, especially during the 10 days. Design tip 3, all grades matter to everybody. So how much information do you want to give your students and parents about grades? So when it comes to grades, transparency is important. I say put it all out there on the syllabus. That way they know. And I'm talking about provide a category breakdown. What are the 3 to 4 components or 5? I've seen teachers with 5 categories in their grades. Just make sure it equals to 100. And then also when you're talking about grades, it's important here to establish your policies and expectations when it comes to due dates, especially coming off a pandemic year. And also makeup work. What's the policy for making up work? Late work and penalty. Are you going to even accept late work? And if you do, how much are you going to penalize for late work submitted? You have to decide that. For me, as a classroom teacher, I normally did not accept late work from seniors, but I was more lenient with my freshmen and sophomores because they were still learning. But by the time of senior year, they're getting ready to graduate, they may not get a late work policy. But regardless, you want to have a policy, an expectation, and guidelines for it. And then you want to teach it and then reinforce it. And then homework. Are you even going to give homework? And if so, what is the homework policy? And then turning in assignments. And that goes back to due dates. So as you can see here are some examples of grade breakdowns. You could do it very visually. And then it has it right there. You could do it very just traditional. Your choice. And then practice makes perfect. Once again, this goes back to that first 10 days. And you're reinforcing and reteaching your policies every single day during that first 10 days. And then incorporate the grading expectations, policies, and procedures into your 10-day plan. If you have turning in assignments, make sure you practice that. And if someone doesn't do it, make sure you give them some feedback, reinforce them. And then what can you maintain effectively and consistently? Think about that. Are you going to give homework every single night? And if you're going to give it every single night, are you going to check it? Is that something you can keep up and maintain effectively and consistently for the entire semester or school year? It's the format for me. How do you want to share your course information with your students and parents? Now, there are several different syllabus formats, and I have a bunch in the folder that I'll put in the description box. Pick the one that's best for you and your personality. Me, I am a visual person. I like using technology and different things, and I like thinking outside the box. So for me, it was a visual and infographic syllabus. Some of you may like the traditional. Some of you may want to go hard and you want to try the digital interactive since we're coming off a pandemic year and it just be easier. However, you still want to have all the design tips that I talked about. So you could do the traditional, the visual infographic, or the some teachers, especially in U.S. history, are doing the interactive syllabus where you just click on a button and it takes it to a certain slide. So it's different ones, and I have all those formats in the folder in the description box. And last but not least, acknowledgement is key. You've created this beautiful syllabus. You have these expectations, guidelines, procedures on grades, everything about how your classroom will run. Now you need to make sure that your students and your parents read it. Set the expectations that syllabus knowledge is required. And then also set the goal of 100% parent acknowledgement. Even if it takes you a couple of weeks, make sure every single parent reads and reviews that syllabus. And then use those first 10 days to remind students about your syllabus when they ask questions that your syllabus answers. I know this may be frustrating to be like, go here, be like, oh, that's a great question, Johnny. Let's look at your syllabus to find that answer. Bam. That's why your syllabus should always be about 1 to 2 pages. I would never have it no more than that. So then you have to decide how you're going to make sure that you get this acknowledgement. You could do traditional and just have the signature slip they cut off and give back. That's paper to keep up with. Do you want to do that? We're in the age of Google. Maybe a digital acknowledgement is best for you, like a Google form. And that way you can capture the email address, and that way you know you have a good, valid email address. Now, you do know students could actually fill it out. So there's that, but at least you know you have an email address on file that you can use to make parent contacts. You could do something fun like a scavenger hunt or a digital escape room. Maybe even create one for your parents to also do. A digital escape room would be a great activity in class during those first 10 days to not only go over the syllabus, but also set your policies and expectations. All right, so those are the 10 tips to succeeding at syllabus design or syllabus building. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions, feel free to list it in the comment box. And as always, remember to like, share, and subscribe. See you next week.